I counted myself very unlucky after all my efforts to find accommodation for grad school had failed. My uncle, who lives in Massachusetts, that was supposed to host me, basically has stopped picking up my calls. Now I'm about boarding a flight from Ghana to the US without a host. This was very scary. My scholarship was just 80%. It didn't have accommodation, and I only had $200 given to me by my godmother. So arriving in the US means that if I don't find a place, I could end up being homeless. And this was not something I was willing to do. But I had no choice. I wanted to take this opportunity. Coming to grad school meant a lot to me. A benevolent arrangement had put me in contact with a family in Massachusetts. Initially, that person wasn't sure where that family lived. But lo and behold, I was lucky. They lived in Waltham. Brandeis was in Waltham. It was just a perfect pair. I arrived at the South Station terminals and was met by these two elderly women. You don't want to believe it. They were twins. And the most difficult part of it was that they were identical. Very, very identical. It was hard to tell one from the other. For a first time, of course. I sat in their car. They walked towards me. They were smiling, and I thought I had won a jackpot because I was standing there alone. I was wondering who was picking me up. So then I sat in their car, and they had music. It was Pentecostal music. So I noticed another thing. They were very strong Pentecostal, so strong Christians. For me, this was going to be the first time living with people of different faith. I'd lived with families or immediate families who were of different backgrounds in terms of faith, but living closely with people of different faith. So this was a new experience to me. But I also found out that it was a new experience for the ladies as well. We arrived at their home. They showed me where I was going to live, and it didn't come with any condition. It was a huge rescue for me. You don't want to believe it, because I needed this. I didn't have the money for the accommodation. I also wanted to make myself very important in their home. So I painted their 3-bedroom house. I changed the kitchen faucet. I changed the tiles. I became a jack of all trades, but of course a master of none. And this strengthened the relationship that we had, because they were long yearning for that male presence in their home who could handle some of these little handy jobs in the house. And I think that fostered that relationship from the get-go. The eldest of the twins sells African foods from home and at church. She uses the back of her minivan to do this selling. And typically, most of the time, she will come home and be like, it was so hectic after a church service, because she has a 30-minute window to do this selling. And had a lot of people who wanted to buy at the same time and then leave for home. When I heard this, I got struck, and I was like, okay, what can I do to help? So one Sunday morning, I decided to follow her to church. This was going to be my first time in a church. I dressed up, and then I followed her to the church premises. On our way driving, I was wondering if it was the right decision, because I was very nervous. I wasn't sure what the religious practices were. I wasn't sure how things were going to go, what was expected of me. What did I have to do in order to blend in? So I was nervous about the decision. We sat in a car, driving from Waltham to Brighton, where the church is located. For me, it was a long drive. It was as if we were never getting to our destination. Once we arrived and we stepped inside the church, my feet felt very heavy. It was as if I had run a 10,000-meter race. I was not sure what was, because she did not explain to me what was going to happen. So I took a seat in the back and just observing. It was amazing, because looking at what was going on, of course, I saw people come in, and they were well-dressed. I could probably tell they were wearing their best robes, the nicest of shoes, bags. So sitting down and observing for me was very important. After 15 minutes, the lead pastor came up and the praise and worship started. The large musical instruments, it pierced my ears. It was so loud. I was getting used to this in the first time because it was just, I could hear the backup singers, the lead singers. It was just loud, but I had to find a way to contain myself. I didn't want to put my two fingers in my ears like a child. After a while, the pastor took the mic and said, first time visitors should stand up and introduce themselves. This was like, for me, this was going to be a difficult moment because I was asking myself, I'm Mustapha. By my Afro identity name, Afro Arabic identity, it's basically, yes, I'm a Muslim, and it was obvious by my name. Then once I stood up and mentioned my first name, the whole church turned around to look at me. It was as if the earth had opened up and I was about to be swallowed. As I introduced myself, what went through my mind, I was wondering if any of my ancestors were in this building watching me and wondering, what is this gentleman doing? I was also wondering if there was anyone within the audience that knew me that would probably call my family and say, hey, your boy has changed his religion. I only came here to help her out. But I couldn't, of course, shout that out. The church service went on for a while, and I think that once we closed, we did that a few times, and I got comfortable. I got to know people. The relationship grew more stronger. I got to connect with a lot of folks. One Sunday, we had just returned from the church, and we're home. A young man came by. He wanted to buy a few things. He bought his items, and he thought it was his place. He had seen me at the church a few times, so he thought it was his place to probably convert me because he had knowledge that I was a Muslim. So we started an argument about religion and development in Ghana. In the course of the argument, his hand hit a Bible which was on the table, and I was sitting close to the table, so I dived at full length to catch the Bible before it hits the ground. I put it back on the table, and I was about to renew our argument. But suddenly I noticed his interest in the argument had just fallen short. He was no longer interested to continue. Myself, the ladies, and a young man sat, and there was a moment of silence. They were worried why I had dived so hard to the point of injuring myself just to catch a Bible. And for me, it was not just a Bible. It was the respect for a holy book. I wouldn't want the Quran to be put on the floor, and it's the same way I wouldn't want to see the Bible being put on the floor. And that was the gesture that, for me, was in mind. But you know what it did? I think that in that moment of silence, it taught us a lot of things about our faith. We got to learn, the ladies got to learn, the gentleman got to learn, and I also got to learn that it's important we show respect. We do not have to attend or have to have the same faith, but the most important thing is that we can coexist. We can get to share religious values within the same moment. And I think that this opened up another door of learning for the ladies and myself. The ladies kept good times of my salat, my 5 daily prayers, and they would usually sometimes call or remind me when it's time. During Ramadan, they would go above and beyond, buy groceries just for me and just to share with me. And there were times when they would fast a few days alongside. And it was beautiful. And each time following them to church, I think that it expanded my understanding of Christianity, Pentecostalism, but also it gave them opportunity to learn something from me. And in the long run, I believe that we build a community of interfaith, where we get to share values, be it Christmas, be it religious festivities, Christian religious festivities. And these were times that we all celebrated at the same time in the house. And I think that in the long run, what it did also was that it gave us that chance to share common values and learn from each other. And we had more progressive discourse over time about religion and growth in general.